Chapter 2104. The meaning behind the Divine Spirit's words was very clear. I'm definitely not afraid, but I'm afraid that you'll be implicated. If two saint-level powerhouses were to fight, wouldn't a mere saint-level powerhouse like you die if you were to bump into them? Wouldn't you be severely injured if you even brushed against them? Chuyang obviously thought of this too. He couldn't help but think of a countermeasure. But he couldn't think of a good way. The next moment, he saw a wisp of black gas hovering over a certain place. Meng Wuya shouted. His body disappeared from his original spot and reappeared at the place where the black smoke was hovering. There was another burst of fighting sounds. Then he pulled out another zombie. This time he didn't ask again. Instead, he directly crushed the zombie. Then another wisp of black gas came out. The two wisps of black gas merged into one. It moved faster and floated to the third place. In the blink of an eye, Meng Wuya had destroyed 5 of the zombies. The Divine Spirit's face was a little ugly. Once Meng Wuya killed the first one, the life origin chi would automatically come to find its master, Meng Wuya. At that time, he wouldn't be able to escape. He wasn't afraid of fighting, but what about Chuyang? Go out quickly and take all the life origin energy. Then fight with him. He can't do anything to you anyway. Then find a chance to hide. Chuyang rolled his eyes and said, "It's not necessarily a bad thing to destroy all the zombies. As long as you take the life origin energy, then it'll be really troublesome for him to find you." The Divine Spirit nodded slowly. Although this was a last resort, it was the best solution at the moment. No, after Meng Wuya had defeated those 5 zombies, he didn't continue to look for the last one. Instead, he faced Chu Yang's hiding place and said indifferently, "Chuyang, I know you are there. Come out. This old man wants to talk with you." Chu Yang's face tightened. Did he really find out? It didn't seem like he was playing tricks. But he didn't find out before. How did he find out now? There are only a few directions in this place. But this Divine Spirit's life origin energy deliberately avoided the direction you are in twice. So you must be here. Meng Wuya said lightly. Come out. This old man promises that as long as you come out, I won't take advantage of this opportunity to deal with you. Even if we are enemies, there are some things that must be made clear before we settle our grudges. Meng Wuya's words were very sincere, but Chuyang didn't dare to believe it. He didn't even believe a single word. At this moment, Yin Russian suddenly said, Chuyang, come out. Don't worry, I'll be your witness. Since Great General Meng said so, then with Great General Meng's reputation, he would never lie to you. Meng Wuya frowned, then suddenly looked up and asked, the Oaths Division? So you're Yin Russian? Yin Russian smiled and nodded. That's me. Meng Wuya's brother. Yin Russian's too. No wonder Yin Russian made things difficult for him, and even defended Chuyang in front of everyone. Meng. Otherwise, they would incur the wrath of the entire Eastern Royal Heaven's Heaven and Earth Oath. Yin Russian's action was obviously a trick. Regarding this point, Mo Yuntian's generals all felt great hatred in their hearts. Just now, many of them were already prepared to kill Chuyang the moment he appeared. At most, they would be punished by military law. At most, they would die. They wanted this person who had killed too many people to be one step ahead of them. But now, if they acted rashly, they would kill the great general, and even everyone in Mo Yuntian. Chuyang's mind turned at lightning speed. He had already made up his mind. So he slowly walked out. Since Yin Russian said so, Chuyang could only come out now. Moreover, he also wanted to see what kind of person Meng Wuya was. From this, he could deduce his character and devise the best escape route. Although he seemed to have the upper hand and was safe, now that his and the Divine Spirit's whereabouts had been exposed, even if the Divine Spirit could escape unscathed, he didn't have the confidence to escape. So he might as well step down now. Now that he had Yin Russian as his backing, he had the capital to deal with Meng Wuya. The ink cloud guards immediately surrounded him. Meng Wuya looked at Chuyang with his sharp eyes and said lightly, blow the horn. Everyone in Mo Yuntian gather. Once the horn is blown, those who don't come will be executed immediately. Then, the bleak sound of a bugle horn was heard. All the silver-armored soldiers of the ink cloud guard gathered together in an extremely short time. Regardless of whether they were in the middle of a search or in the middle of a battle, they all returned to their teams regardless of whether they were willing or not. Many of them had already sustained injuries and wounds. In such a short time, many people had already lost their lives here. It could be seen that the major sects had tolerated this bunch of people to the extreme. Once they attacked, they directly greeted them with death, without any intention of holding back. At this moment, when these people retreated, the people of the major sects also heaved a sigh of relief. They were still resentful. Glancing at them, they immediately suppressed their desire for revenge and rushed into the mountains to search for treasures. 10 years was not too late to take revenge. Now it was more important to quickly search for treasures here. But this time, it was definitely not over. You people of Mo Yuntian are so tyrannical, we will remember you. Meng Wuya looked at Chu Yang with his sharp eyes and said lightly, "You are Chu Yang?" Chu Yang smiled amiably. "Of course. How dare you?" A general at the side shouted. It was really like thunder piercing the ear. "Don't be impatient." Meng Wuya stopped this subordinate and took a deep breath. He said, "Then what about the divine spirit of the tribulation?" Chu Yang smiled and said, "What is the divine spirit of the tribulation?" Meng Wuya stared at him for a long time and said, "Chu Yang, although I am not going to beat around the bush, since there are some things that you don't want to say, I won't force you. But since you don't want to admit it, then I believe that you have nothing to do with the divine spirit of the tribulation." Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. There was a huge trap in this sentence. If Chu Yang denied it, then in a while, Meng Wuya would take action to deal with the divine spirit of the tribulation, and even use all of Mo Yuntian's forces to deal with the divine spirit of the tribulation. Chu Yang absolutely had no reason to intervene, and it was even more impossible to use the battle power of Donghuang Heaven to intervene. But if Chu Yang admitted that the divine spirit of the tribulation was his, then this realm of divine source would change from an ownerless land to Chu Yang's private territory. Then where did the treasures go? In other words, Chu Yang was equivalent to offending all the super sects in the world at the same time. No matter which of these two consequences, Chu Yang didn't want to bear the responsibility, especially the latter reason, which he couldn't bear. Chu Yang thought about it in his heart, but his expression didn't change. He said, "General Meng, if you have something to say, please say it." Great General Meng's method was undoubtedly shrewd and ruthless, but he misjudged one thing, a very important thing, and that was the strength of the divine spirit of the tribulation. Even if he gathered all of Mo Yuntian's battle power, he still wouldn't be able to annihilate the divine spirit of the tribulation. To put it bluntly, as long as it wasn't a peerless expert at the level of Juni Ho, it was impossible to cause any effective damage to the divine spirit of the tribulation. Even if Great General Meng's true strength was roughly on par with the divine spirit of the tribulation, even if he had the support of Mo Yuntian's army, his overall strength was still far superior to the divine spirit of the tribulation. Once they fought, the divine spirit of the tribulation would definitely not be his opponent, but the ones who would suffer in the end would still be the soldiers of Mo Yuntian. It was precisely because Chu Yang had communicated with the divine spirit of the tribulation earlier that he confirmed this point, that he could be so calm and confident. As long as Chu Yang could ensure his own safety, there was no need for Chu Yang to worry about the safety of the divine spirit of the tribulation. Meng Wuya said slowly, "First, I want to make it clear to you. This time, it was our Mo Yuntian's Taiyuan path that was wrong first. Whether it was the kidnapping of your wife, or you being forced to defend yourself, whether it was life or death, victory or defeat, it was all my fault. It was also natural for you to kill him. This point, I have to make it clear in advance," he said heavily. "I have been in charge of the military for hundreds of thousands of years. Although I have killed people like flies, at the very least, I can still distinguish between right and wrong." Chu Yang's face revealed a heavy expression. "I understand what you mean." "No, you don't understand," Meng Wuya said. "Taiyuan was killed. Lord Heavenly Emperor is extremely furious. So, even if this batch of people doesn't catch you, there will continue to be the next batch of people coming. If you don't die, this matter will definitely not be let go." Chu Yang nodded slowly. I can also foresee this point. In a distant place, there was a sudden explosion of smoke. Meng Wuya saw it, but did not take any action. These words, on one hand, were said for Chu Yang to hear. On the other hand, it was also said for the divine spirit of the tribulation. Don't think that just because you are helping Chu Yang, we can't do anything. Don't think that Chu Yang's enemies are only people like me. Chu Yang's enemies were definitely not limited to these people in front of him. His real enemy was a heavenly emperor, or a world. What kind of huge power was that? As long as you, the divine spirit of the tribulation, are not stupid, you should consider it carefully. The consequences of interfering in this matter. Are you sure you can afford it? The effect of these words was undoubtedly very big. The divine spirit of the tribulation was indeed shocked. In fact, he was even frightened. When he heard it just now, he was so shocked that he could not perfectly conceal his aura, to the extent that smoke burst out. Oh my God! So the little ancestor's enemy was actually Heavenly Emperor Mo Yin, Heavenly Limit Yuan. That was a big shot on par with Heavenly Emperor Shui Leihan of the East Royal clan. And this little ancestor was at odds with Heavenly Emperor Mo Yin, and even wanted to kill him. This was an irreconcilable enmity. I've just pledged my allegiance to this little ancestor, and he's already causing me such a huge problem. When he thought of this, the divine spirit of the tribulation almost wanted to cry. With the power of a divine spirit of the tribulation, to go against the entire world of Mo Yin. Chapter 2105. The people behind Chu Yang all kept their mouths tightly shut. Everyone knew that this was an extremely dangerous situation. If they were discovered by the enemy, it would mean that there was no more luck. At this time, everyone followed their previous agreement and spontaneously distanced themselves from each other. The team was instantly divided into 4 groups. Time passed little by little. Night had already fallen, but the fire that had spread for thousands of miles had lit up this originally dark space, as if it was daytime. The time it took for a stick of incense to burn passed in the blink of an eye. At the back on the fire field, someone shouted in surprise, "General Meng, here. There are 3 corpses." Meng Wuya was startled, and immediately went over. They are the disciples of those 2 sections. All of them were beheaded by a sword. Meng Wuya observed the corpses. He raised his head and pondered carefully. Then he said decisively, "This should be the process of their escape. Because of something, they were beheaded by Chu Yang in public as a warning to others. If that's the case, they should have already escaped before the fire started. Otherwise, these 3 people would not have been beheaded because of some kind of resistance. So they are most likely not in the grassland area now. Everyone, cross the fire field at full speed. The whole army is in pursuit." But why did they resist? It is because the previous series of movements were too tiring. And this grassland gives people a rare sense of security. Although this sense of security is just a false package, it is real. Since they have already killed people because of this fleeing team should be on the verge of falling apart. After all, they are just a team that was forcefully put together for the same purpose. They lack the basic run-in, and will not be able to achieve anything big. Meng Wuya was carried over the raging fire in a soft bag. He said indifferently, "Since that's the case, our men are coming from the opposite direction. We have to cut off their escape route. We can capture them all in one fell swoop, and finish the job in one fell swoop." Hearing this, the 5,000 people's spirits were lifted. Their speed increased sharply. The opportunity to complete the mission was in front of them. Naturally, they chased with all their might. Chu Yang's original black clothes were now filled with other colors. While he was moving forward, he was suddenly startled. He suddenly stopped moving forward. Not only him, but among the 117 people, there were 100 people who showed the same expression. There were people in front. In fact, it wasn't just the front that was approaching. People were approaching from all directions. By the time they discovered the enemy, the inky cloud guards had also discovered them. Suddenly someone shouted, "There's someone in front. It should be the target murderer. Charge." The next moment, 7 or 8 swords were almost all aimed at the vital parts of Zhang Yi's body. Countless destructive vital energy raged in his body. However, he laughed and said, "Let's go." Suddenly his body exploded with a boom. This explosion was abrupt, and the momentum was even more earth-shattering. Behind Chu Yang, someone sighed deeply. "Don't sigh. We don't have time for that now. Leave quickly." Chu Yang rushed out. This was the best time to escape. It wasn't that Chu Yang wasn't sad, but now was definitely not the time to be sad. A series of explosions rang out. Those 48 people all chose to burn their spiritual energy and vitality to the extreme, and then rushed into the dense group of enemies to explode to death. They used their own lives to open up a path forward, and used their blood to water a bloody path to escape. In the place where flesh and blood were scattered, the people they wanted to protect passed through just like that. In a situation where everyone's strength was about the same, these people burned all their remaining vitality and spiritual energy to the extreme. The power of their self-explosion was at least 3 or 4 times stronger than normal. How could Mo Yuntian and the others withstand it? No matter how fearless the ink cloud guards were, they weren't truly fearless of death. But in the face of such enemies, they were also at their wits' end. As many as 70 to 80 ink cloud guards were buried in the self-explosion of these experts. In addition, there were also many who were seriously injured. Chu Yang showed no mercy to these people. He swept past like the wind, and with one sword he killed all of them. "You must survive." The last expert of the 4th squad roared. Boom! A loud explosion was heard. There were only 20 or so ink cloud guards left in front of him. The situation seemed to have reversed in an instant. No. In the distance, there was the sound of clothes fluttering in the air. Several voices roared together. "At all costs! Stop Chu Yang!" Large groups of ink cloud guards were rushing over one after another. The opportunity was fleeting. There was no room for hesitation. Chu Yang let out an extremely sorrowful roar. The calamity sword flashed, and he rushed over with his sword. Behind him, a total of 140 people were like a cone, and Chu Yang was the tip of the cone. Calamity sword technique. What harm is there in slaughtering the world? The calamity sword brought out an extremely dazzling sword aura, and shot straight through the air. It went straight for the defensive line of the ink cloud guards. Ding ding dang dang. In front of the unparalleled sharpness of the calamity sword, countless weapons had no room to fight back. They broke one after another, and blood splashed out from the chests of the ink cloud guards. In just an instant 7 or 8 human bodies were sent flying to the left and right, and there was a whooshing sound. If it was in the past, there would definitely be people who would object. If you go where the flying boat came from, wouldn't you be walking right into a trap? But now, everyone didn't even have this question. They didn't even think about it. Whatever Chu Yang said they would do. In any case, Chu Yang was absolutely right. Even if they were really wrong, they would accept it. What should he do? Ambush on the other side. Meng Wuya was also thinking hard about this problem. Which side would Chu Yang choose after seeing the flying boat? Should I choose the opposite side? Or choose another direction? Or should they simply advance towards the defensive line where the flying boats came from? Meng Wuya thought over and over again, but still couldn't make up his mind. In the end, he could only grit his teeth and say, "Set up an ambush in the direction of the flying boat." The continuous drizzle in the sky finally became heavier, as if it was pouring down. These days, it had been rainy and foggy, with occasional light drizzles. But now it suddenly became a downpour pouring down. The sky was densely covered with dark clouds. It was already late autumn, and the wind was blowing, but there wasn't much lightning or thunder accompanying it. Chu Yang led people and carefully advanced towards the flying boat hovering in the sky. This operation could be said to be a huge risk. If the other party was ambushing on the other side, then Chu Yang would attack the flying boat cleanly, rob a flying boat and escape directly. Although he had never seen such a thing before, there were a lot of people around him who knew how to operate it. These people were all from super sects, so they would have some foundation, and there was no lack of high-tech things like flying boats. But if the other party happened to be ambushing here, then he would be walking right into the trap. Chu Yang's face was calm, but his heart was filled with anxiety, because his compression of spiritual energy had already reached a limit. Now his meridians in Dantian were already close to burning. A breakthrough would come at any time. And he couldn't control it at all. Once it broke out at a certain time, everything would be over. If he forcibly suppressed it and didn't break through, the result would be that he would explode. He would also be finished and die even faster. In the blink of an eye, 100 miles of peace had quietly passed under their feet. The flying boat in the sky had already begun to descend slowly. Chu Yang's actions were even more cautious. In different directions, all of the ink cloud guards and silver-armored soldiers were also extremely careful as they circled around in this direction. The heavy rain poured down from the sky, as if it didn't cost anything. Chu Yang and the others were also a little excited. As long as they snatched this flying boat, everyone would be able to escape easily, until they completely bid farewell to this damned life of escape. Half a rabbit fell from Li Xiongtu's hand, and fell into the fire with a bang. Such good rabbit meat. How can I waste it like this? Chu Yang hurriedly scooped it out, and said with heartache. But he didn't hear Li Xiongtu's response. Chu Yang turned around, and saw Li Xiongtu staring at him, as if he had seen a ghost. Heavenly man level. Cough cough. Chu Yang realized that he had unintentionally acted a little pretentious. It was the kind that deserved a beating. You. Are you still human? Li Xiongtu was so aggrieved that he wanted to die. I've been cultivating so hard, and even had such great opportunities, but I'm still only at the heaven stage. But you've already surpassed the heaven stage, saint stage, and reached the heaven stage? Is there such a thing as slightly higher and one word lower? Cough cough. I'm actually fine. It's just that my opportunities are a little better. Chu Yang was speechless and didn't dare to say anything more. If he had known that Li Xiongtu would be beaten black and blue by him, he would have hidden a little more. Li Xiongtu was shocked for a while. Then he came back to his senses. He laughed and said, "That's great. I have a new goal." He laughed heartily. "I've been chasing all of you, chasing Motianji, Gu Du Xing, Dong Wu Shang. But I never caught up. It's good that I didn't catch up. If I did, I'm afraid I'll slack off. I'll let all of you run in front. It's also a kind of fun for me to keep chasing." His voice was full of heroism. There was no hint of disappointment at all. Chapter 2108. Reorganize the team and be on guard. When the hook-nosed old man said those words, he realized that his voice was actually trembling. Rather than saying that he was warning others, it was more like he was warning himself that the terrifying enemy could appear again at any time. If he didn't want to die, he had to be careful at all times. Following this shout, the large group of people came back to their senses. After calming down from the shock, everyone's faces were filled with fear. They gathered together and whispered to each other with pale faces. Looking at the messy corpses on the ground, they were all old friends who were talking and laughing with them just a moment ago. For a moment, everyone felt a sense of sadness. But now, strangely, the sadness was not strong. Instead, it was fear, and worry for their future that took over their hearts. Or it could also be said that when these people crossed oceans and mountains to come here, to kill their old elders and old brothers, that kind of friendship that they once cherished had long disappeared from their hearts, right? Once there was no love, no one's life was more important than their own in their eyes. When the team set off again, the atmosphere was much gloomier than before. Looking at the gate of Lone Bamboo City not far away, it was like looking at a demon with its mouth wide open, waiting for a chance to devour. Once they entered the city, they would have to face the assassination of their enemies at any time. Facing such a gloomy atmosphere, the leader of the team, the hook-nosed elder, could not do anything. He even had such thoughts. But as the leader of the team, he had to do it. He said loudly, "Everyone, let's hurry up. As long as we meet up with the other two sects, everything will be fine." Everyone was shocked. As long as they met up, their manpower would multiply, and their chances of survival would increase as well. They immediately quickened their pace. But at this moment, another change occurred. From the back of the team, a black shadow with a magnificent sword light rushed over. This time, there was no greeting at all. If the last time was a surprise attack, this time was a real sneak attack. The terrifying executioner, who had just chiseled through the entire team and left successfully, did not really leave. In fact, after he succeeded in his first attack, he didn't even pause for long before he launched a second round of attacks. Chiseling through, it was still chiseling through. The sneak attack this time was even more abrupt than the first time. This was completely out of everyone's expectations. Only when this sword light of death was only 1 or 2 feet away from the crowd did someone notice it. Enemy attack. Ah. The person who screamed was at the front of the group, but he only had time to shout out before he was instantly crushed by the dazzling sword light. Chapter 2109. A crazy executioner had slaughtered so many people in one night, and there had been no news of it at all. The city lord of Lone Bamboo City, in Yao Emperor's heaven, was livid. In one night, such a shocking case had happened under his rule. Reporting to the city lord, the count is clear. There are a total of 187 corpses here. A young man said softly. Including the 324 people outside the city, there are 1,311 corpses. Among these corpses, 210 belong to the Ghost Hunter, 550 belong to the Iron Sword sect, and the rest belong to the Ice sect. There are 412 corpses. All of them are from the sects. Then this is clearly a vendetta in Jianghu. The city lord's words determined the nature of this case. As long as it wasn't a murderous maniac, it was fine. The other party clearly had a target. This way, the responsibility of the government would be reduced to the minimum. The city lord's words almost drove the 3 sects crazy. What does the city lord of Lone Bamboo City mean by this? Bleach yourself? In other words, this is a vendetta in Jianghu. You have nothing to do with it? You want us 3 sects to deal with it ourselves? Of course, Jianghu's grudges are Jianghu's grudges, but we can't handle it right now. Even if the dead are Jianghu people, they are still people from the sections. There are still many lives, aren't there? You're just going to ignore it. Under normal circumstances, Jianghu's matters are Jianghu's matters. Both sides don't welcome the intervention of the government. However, the current situation was very strange. The other party was too ferocious. It had already exceeded the scope of what the 3 great sects could handle. Originally, he wanted to use this matter to find more help. But now, it seemed that the city lord was going to slip away. The city lord seemed to have received an important piece of news. Then, he said a few words sanctimoniously, excused himself, and turned around to leave. He left as if he was floating in the air. We are all friends. It is natural for us to help each other. Since you are here, I will naturally give you the green light. As long as you don't provoke any criticism from the people, I will do my best to help you. But I just received a secret order from my superiors. I need to deal with it immediately. Goodbye. If there's anything you want to do, feel free to do so. Just like that, after a bunch of nonsense that seemed pretty on the surface, but was actually completely useless, he instantly slipped away and disappeared without a trace. The 3 sects were so angry that smoke was coming out of their heads. What should we do? What should we do now? The leaders gathered together with a worried look on their faces. These people had been fighting for positions in their respective sects in the Black Cloud Sky continent. They had been fighting each other for hundreds of thousands of years. Between them, there was a blood debt, and they could not live under the same sky. Everyone's heart felt very strange. However, for the survival of his own sect, he had no choice but to do so. The current situation was not complicated at all. It could even be said that it was very clear. There was only one person on the other side. As long as they could deal with this person, everything would be settled. But this person's strength was ridiculously high. According to the hawk-nosed elder's description, this person's strength was at least at the peak of the heaven being level. His moves were superb, and he even had an indestructible sword as support. His killing power was so strong that it was almost impossible to estimate. If it was a one-on-one fight, most of the people here would just be sending themselves to death. At least, he was also at the peak of the heaven being level. Doesn't that mean that he could be a saint-level expert? Of course, this was to a certain extent an overestimation by the hawk-nosed elder. Chu Yang's strength did not seem to be that exaggerated. The current situation is that each sect has dispatched at least 2,500 elites. Such a huge force, and all of them belong to the Jianghu organizations. If they really gather together, it is simply unrealistic. We can only split up and act separately. The great elder of the Ghost clan sighed. The Iron Sword sect elder also sighed. But the problem now is that if we gather together, the enemy will not come. But if we scatter, the enemy will take advantage of the situation and attack. He will use all kinds of methods to kill all of us. And on our side, there is no one who can resist him directly. It was this seemingly unsolvable problem that made everyone frown. Currently, there were only a dozen or so people present who could withstand half a strike from the mysterious murderer. However, they couldn't possibly take care of every single one of them. Moreover, if the enemy used a sneak attack, even if everyone was present and resisted with all their strength, they might not be able to prevent people from being killed. Should we inform the Mo Yuntian officials? Get support from there? The Ice Sect elder's face darkened. Please don't. The first elder of the Ghost territory could not help but turn pale. Now our three families have become the key targets of observation, and even have been noticed by the Heaven Emperor. Maybe we will be sentenced to death at any time. If that's the case, then our three families will really be annihilated. If we inform them now, and they come to arrest or capture those people, then we will really have nothing to do with it. In the eyes of the Heaven Emperor, our three families have only brought people out once, and we did not put in any effort. I'm afraid we will feel even worse. Not only will our people die in vain, but we will also get no benefits. The others nodded. What the great elder said makes sense. But with our current manpower, can we catch the enemy? The Iron Sword sect elder was obviously a little uneasy after the 2 assassinations. He knew that he did not have the strength to do so. Let's cut off all means of retreat. The current situation is that we can't trap the wolf without sacrificing the child. The Ghost sect elder's eyes showed a gloomy look. We have 8,000 people here, and we will be stationed in 20 places. Basically, we can have a peak-level celestial being expert not far away. As for the early celestial being stage, we must ensure that there are at least 3 experts in each place. In this way, if any place is attacked, we can hold on for a period of time. During this period of time, we only need to shout, and we will be able to arrive in the shortest time possible. In other words, this operation may sacrifice 300 to 400 people. However, the price of these 300 to 400 people in exchange for the capture of that bloody executioner, I think it is still worth it. Great Elder's brilliant plan. The others praised loudly, expressing their agreement. After all, it may not be so unlucky that it will be the team from my sect, right? It is only a 1 in 3 chance. As for the other sects sacrificing 300 to 400 people, what does it have to do with me? Of course, on the surface, I still have to express regret. It must be pretentious. As for the people from Mo Yuntian's military, I believe that they will get the news sooner or later and come here. Even now, they are already on their way here. The great elder of the Ghost clan said with a malicious look in his eyes, "We must finish this before they arrive. We must do everything possible to not give them a chance to speak." Yes, then let's split up and act separately. Divide the experts of our sect into different teams. Especially remember, we must raise our vigilance. Okay, speaking of which, although this mysterious expert killed so many of our people, I don't really blame him in my heart. The Ghost sect elder looked at the corpses on the field, his eyes filled with grief and indignation. But the words he said shocked everyone. Why is that? It is very simple. Since this mysterious expert has the ability to kill so many people silently, then he must have the ability to destroy all these people without leaving any trace. And this person's goal is clear. He is obviously from Chu Yang's side. He can be said to be our mortal enemy. Such a mortal enemy, no matter what he does, it is reasonable. But he still chose to keep the corpses. This in itself is a kind of understanding. Previously, when he killed people outside the city gate in broad daylight, it provided a kind of backing. Because with just these corpses, the families of these dead people will not be troubled in Mo Yuntian. This is the evidence of sacrifice. If both body and soul are destroyed, there will be no evidence at all. That would really be harming the whole family. Although this mysterious assassin was ruthless in his actions and killed countless people, in the end, he did not really kill to the last one and left some leeway. The ghost sect elder's malicious face also faintly had a trace of admiration. If I were him, facing such a situation, I might not be able to do it so thoroughly too. Although everyone felt that these words were not so pleasing to the ears, they could only nod their heads in agreement. Because what the ghost sect elder said was not wrong at all. Too many deaths actually did not have anything to do with the three great sections. Getting into such a state, it was entirely the three great sects who had only themselves to blame. But Lord Heavenly Emperor wanted to take his anger out on the three great sections. This was also something that could not be helped. As for failing to complete the mission, beheading the whole family was even more common. But the person already died while carrying out the mission. There was even a corpse as evidence. For your mission, you even paid with your life. Already like this, you still want to take your anger out on his family? That would not be justifiable. Still insisting on doing things your way. That would be the standard behavior of a bastard. No matter how Heavenly Emperor Mo Yin covered the sky with one hand, he also did not dare to take the risk in this vast world. Although this mysterious assassin killed many people, to be able to achieve keeping all the corpses, it was equivalent to protecting the families of these victims. Could it be that they should still be grateful to this executioner? Everyone felt that it was strange to the extreme. The people belonging to the three great sects all entered Lone Bamboo City. After Chu Yang recovered from the internal injuries, he found an opportunity to meet up with everyone. Three great sects close to 1,000 people. Presumably, they should have turned out in full force and came to this Lone Bamboo City. Looking at their posture, if you all don't die, I'm afraid they won't withdraw. Chapter 2110. Chu Yang said solemnly. The situation now is obvious. Everyone be mentally prepared. Everyone was silent, and their faces were especially ugly. Those who could live until now were all calm and determined people. Even if the situation was so bad, they would not have the intention to waver. Bai Yuchen let out a long sigh and said, Almost 1,000 people came. This is basically the foundation of the three big sections. Bai Yuchen was the number 3 person in the sect previously. His judgment was undoubtedly very accurate. Since they came to capture us, those who are below the standard of martial saints can't be brought out at all. If this standard is used as the criterion, then the three big sects only have 10,000 people at most. This is still the result of hundreds of thousands of years of inheritance. Looks like they are really determined to capture us this time. Bai Yuchen's voice was filled with a kind of vicissitude and sadness. His words made everyone's faces even uglier. Don't tell me that there is no righteous person in our sect? Is there no one who can distinguish right from wrong? Although Che Shichu was a young expert of the new generation, he was after all a young man and lacked basic experience. At this moment, he was so agitated that his face was flushed red. Usually, everyone is so sanctimonious, and their words are powerful. It seems that each and every one of them takes the righteousness of saving the martial world and saving the people of the world as their own responsibility. Why is it that at this time, they can only succumb to their mistakes and come to kill us? That's right. The beginning of this matter was clearly due to him forcefully snatching women. Could it be that in the eyes of Lord Heavenly Emperor Ink Cloud Heaven, forcefully snatching women is something that should be done? Someone was filled with anger. Bai Yuchen let out a long sigh. It's just reality. In the eyes of Heavenly Emperor, snatching women is undoubtedly a big crime. If the one who did such a thing was not Tai Yuchen, but any one of us, I'm afraid that we would have long been ordered to be executed by Heavenly Emperor and announced to the world. But the problem is that the one who snatched women is Tai Yuchen. And Tai Yuchen was actually killed. Bai Yuchen chuckled, full of ridicule. Haha, other people's children are not children, but his own children are his treasures. Someone said, full of ridicule. How can such a narrow-minded person be qualified to oversee a world? How can such a despicable act convince people? How disappointing. Heh. Bai Yuchen sneered and said, I've already said it. It's just reality. You guys don't have to comment on what you're angry about. In the end, you're just unwilling to accept it. Let me ask all of you. If all of you didn't come to the Eastern Royal Sky and weren't forced to the point of no return, if all of you were still in the sect, Would you have been part of the group that came to annihilate us? This question made everyone lower their heads. Only Che Shichu said loudly, I won't, I definitely won't. Bai Yuchen sneered. Maybe you won't, because you're still young and haven't recognized reality. However, the reality was that most people would do the same. Since this was the reality, what was there to complain about? Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir, that was all. At worst he would just die. What was there to be indignant about? This was Jianghu. This is the essence of the martial world. The Heavenly Emperor loves his son dearly, and doesn't treat other people's children as his own. This is a matter of course. Although it was not in accordance with the law, it was pitiful. You guys are so impressive. Why don't you go and be a Heavenly Emperor? Heavenly Emperor Blackcloud has the ability to become a Heavenly Emperor of a region. He has the qualifications to stand above laws and regulations. Since things already reached this point, is there any use in talking? What's competing now is whose fist is harder. The so-called reason is nothing more than dog fart. The so-called fairness is nothing more than a joke. The so-called legal system is just empty talk to those in power. The so-called popular will, what's the use at this moment? At least it's meaningless to us right now. If you can't see through this point, don't talk about roaming Jianghu. Although Bai Yuchen's voice was soft, his tone and countenance were stern. If not for Villa Lord Chu, our corpses would have long rotted away. Being able to live until now is already all thanks to Villa Lord Chu risking his life and doing his best. You guys still want to make a ruckus here endlessly. This old man is losing face for you all. Sect elites? Pooh. The words made everyone's faces flush red. Hanging their heads, no one opened their mouths to speak anymore. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh and said, now that things have come to this, saying this is also useless. Talking about it, everyone is just somewhat unconvinced in their hearts and grumbling, that's all. What should be done is still done. This point I still believe. Seeing that Chu Yang spoke, Bai Yuchen also took advantage of the situation, and no longer scolded the crowd. He said respectfully, yes, what Villa Lord said is right. Actually, how could he not know that these people's anger was just because they were unreconciled and unconvinced? It did not affect their actions at all. But if this kind of anger could not be quelled immediately, they would probably be impulsive sooner or later one day too. One person being impulsive might very well implicate everyone here. This was something that must be guarded against. Now that things have come to this, everyone, fight it out with him. Several people's faces flushed red, roaring in a low voice. Right. Fight it out with them. If he doesn't, don't blame us for being unjust. Fight it out. Fight it out. Chu Yang gave a low cry. Silence. Everyone's seething emotions immediately quietened down. Each and every one of them looked at Chu Yang while panting heavily. Here, I have something to announce. Chu Yang's face was serious. The situation in front of us is very serious. Any disguises you put on now will be useless and meaningless to them. So during this period, no one is allowed to go out. No reason, no exception. Chu Yang threw down 2 space rings and said, inside these are the food and water you need, as well as some elixirs for cultivation. It's better than nothing. After a moment of silence, Bai Yuchen suddenly sighed. Villa Lord, let us go out. We might as well fight it out with them directly. It can also be considered as ending this feud and saying goodbye to the past. Everyone raised their heads at the same time. Obviously, this was not Bai Yuchen's idea. They were all people of the pugilistic world, and all of them had good skills. Which one of them was not proud and arrogant? If the enemy came, yet he could only hole up in the ground like a coward and hide like a mouse, that feeling was simply worse than death. Chu Yang was silent for a moment before he said, no, you guys can't make a move, let alone show up. Because as long as you guys make a move, regardless of whether it causes casualties or not, your relatives and clans over there are destined to be finished. Che Shichu's face flushed red. But we've already fought with Meng Wuya and their army for 80,000 miles. Those who should be offended have already been offended. What's there to be afraid of? It's not the same. The previous battle and the enemy this time are fundamentally different. Chu Yang said solemnly, Heavenly Emperor Mo Yin, as a Heavenly Emperor, If he takes his anger out on his family because of this, it will undoubtedly appear narrow-minded. Furthermore, the negative effects will only be greater. Regarding this, even Yuan Tianji also has to be wary. But if you guys make a move to deal with people from our sect, their trusted aides or relatives in the sect will come to make things difficult, or destroy and persecute. It's impossible to guard against. So this time, you guys definitely can't make a move. Chu Yang smiled slightly and said, I think your family is already suffering enough right now. Don't make things worse for them. Since you guys are following me, then I have to take this aspect into consideration. Bai Yuchen and the others stood up at the same time. Their faces were full of gratitude as they said from the bottom of their hearts, Manor Lord, we are infinitely grateful for your kind intentions. Thank you very much. Chu Yang smiled faintly. When a real man does things, there are things to do and things not to do. It's convenient for others and convenient for oneself. But I have to say the ugly words first. We've already done the best we can. Furthermore, even if the people over there were killed by me, most of their corpses were still intact. I've also thought about them. But even if that's the case, if the family over there still suffers from the hands of evil, then I really have no other choice. This is all I can do. Yes, everyone was sincerely convinced. As a leader, Chu Yang could put himself in their shoes and think so carefully for his subordinates. Everyone was already indescribably grateful. Our current strength isn't strong enough to fight head-on with the other party, but I believe that one day, we will kill our way to Ink Cloud Heaven and find Yuan Tianming to take back this blood debt. We will also be able to take back our family over there. Chu Yang let out a deep breath. So everyone please work hard. Everyone watched silently as Chu Yang waved his hand and left. Chu Yang's words echoed in everyone's hearts. In this chaotic world, strength is the most fundamental thing. Everyone felt warm in their hearts. Ever since the incident, they had been worried that their family members would be harmed. They had been on tenterhooks, unable to sleep or eat well. But when Chu Yang's words came out, everyone suddenly felt their hearts calm down. Only with hope would there be a vision for the future. Only with this vision would there be the motivation to continue. Manor Lord has already thought of everything that we can take care of and do. He's even done it to the extreme. If something still happens over there after doing all this, then there's really no other way. Worry is still worry, but it's ultimately beyond our reach. When Chu Yang came out again, he had regained that sickly young man's demeanor from before. The entire courtyard was filled with the smell of medicine. Such a strong smell of medicine had attracted no less than hundreds of people to use their divine senses, to explore, or come to check. But when they saw that it was a young man with tuberculosis who would die in a few days, they all lost their interest. At this moment, it was already close to noon. Chu Yang was still coughing nonstop. He closed the door with difficulty and walked out with his back hunched. The direction he was heading was the direction of the local food market. The bleak cold wind blew on his body. His tattered clothes that had already turned white from washing fluttered in the wind. It was a desolate sight. Everyone who saw his figure couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Chapter 21:11. The young man turned a few corners and quietly disappeared into the crowd. From the bustling market, he turned into a dark and damp alley. Chu Yang clearly felt that there was no longer any divine sense paying attention to this place. Suddenly, he straightened his body, and his divine sense instantly spread out, covering a radius of 30 feet. Within the range of this divine sense, no one would be able to see or hear anything for a certain period of time. Chu Yang quickly grabbed at the ground, and the entire ground was instantly covered with a layer of soil that was 30 feet deep. The topmost layer of soil was still attached to rocks, and there was even some vegetable and horse dung on the rocks. Chu Yang's body flashed and he disappeared. The ground that was more than 10 feet in radius once again sank back into the ground, without a sound. Once again, it was seamlessly connected to the houses on both sides. No one would know or think that there was actually a tunnel here. A living person had once disappeared here. It was not only because this method of hiding the entrance was too unreasonable and unconventional. This place was really too dilapidated and too poor. So much so that after the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a vagrant just happened to walk past. After looking around and seeing that there was no one around, he took off his pants and snorted, sprinkling a perverted substance on the ground. Of course, this vagrant did not notice that his urine had actually penetrated the ground very quickly. He only shivered in pleasure, raised his head and sighed deeply. He seemed to be enjoying himself. After he was done, he left. Chu Yang, dressed in black, was shuttling through the ground at lightning speed. However, such speed did not make the slightest sound of breaking through the air. Sensing the movement above, he finally reached the end of the tunnel. He popped his head out from a similarly desolate house and vigilantly scanned the surroundings. After confirming that there was no abnormality, he flew up. Then with a whoosh, he flew high into the sky. His divine sense spread out without any concealment and enveloped the area below. Under a series of coincidences, Chu Yang's cultivation had improved greatly. When he reached the celestial being level, he directly reached the peak of the initial stage of the celestial being level. His overall combat strength was no less than that of a peak celestial being level expert. However, compared to his divine sense cultivation, it was still far inferior. His divine sense was already extremely powerful due to his many fortuitous encounters. Now it had improved even more. With the help of the heaven-multiplying divine technique and the different attributes of his divine sense, it could be said to be extremely powerful. It was not below the level of a sage. With such a powerful divine sense, in the current Lone Bamboo City, it could kill any god that stood in its way, or Buddha that stood in its way. No one dared to block its sharpness. Such a powerful divine sense was like a huge net that covered the entire Lone Bamboo City from all directions. The corners of Chu Yang's mouth curled into a sneer. He carefully and quickly identified everything that he wanted to confirm. The moment this divine sense rushed out, in the inn where a certain empress was staying, Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma, who were both saint-level experts, were shocked. Who was this person? How could such a super expert come to Lone Bamboo City? The two of them simultaneously spread out their divine senses, wanting to make contact with it. However, they were shocked to find that their divine senses could not get close to the other party's core. What did this mean? The two of them looked at each other in shock. How could there be such a thing? The two of them retracted their divine senses at the same time. The other party obviously did not want to be probed. This was certain. If the two of them rashly probed and angered the other party, such a powerful enemy would appear out of nowhere. Moreover, they still had to take care of Master Ma. That would be a big problem. But in the next moment, the two of them had a new discovery. After that powerful divine sense searched around, it seemed to spread out aimlessly. Then, it suddenly disappeared without a trace. It came and went in such a hurry. It came and went without a trace. It was really strange. The two of them wiped the cold sweat off their heads at the same time. Uncle Hu still had a lingering fear. Who was this person? It must be known that the experts above the saint level were all famous. Even if they were both saint level experts, there was a considerable gap between the beginner saint level and the saint level. Unless they were like the divine soul of calamity and had the trait of being immortal, a beginner saint level expert would definitely not be a match for a saint level expert. Even if Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma, the two beginner saint level experts, joined hands, they might not be able to withstand one move from a saint level expert. Uncle Ma's expression was solemn. Could this person be Mo Yuntian's subordinate? Would Heavenly Emperor Mo Yuntian send out such a heavyweight expert? It can't be. Uncle Hu was a little suspicious. It's hard to say. Uncle Ma sighed deeply. If such an expert really came out, that Chu Yang would not be able to escape this time. Even the two of them together could not defeat him. What could a mere Chu Yang do? In the room, Tan Tan's two eyes, one big and one small, shone fiercely. Although this divine sense was extremely strong and seemed to be boundless, Tan Tan still felt a trace of a very familiar and real feeling from it. Is it Senior Brother? When did Senior Brother become so strong? Isn't this a little too ridiculously strong? Yes, Itchy, he is indeed here. Tan Tan suddenly, he felt his heart boiling. Senior Brother, I'm here to help you. Xia Dan Feng, you blessed little girl. I'm always looking for you. Are you touched? Chu Yang's body was like a meteorite falling to the ground. He fell from the sky at an extremely fast speed. His target was clear, mixed with surging and biting cold killing intent. It also carried infinite elegance and calmness. At this moment, Chu Yang's heart was like stone. Must kill. Chu Yang had never been a bloodthirsty person. But this time, he must take the initiative to wield the butcher's knife and personally kill all the opponents here. There was no basis for this. There was even no gratitude or grudges. There was only a clear reality. If the enemy does not die, then I die. It was so simple, so pure. This was the iron-blooded law of the martial world. Chu Yang's target this time was a big courtyard in a city. This place used to be the residence of a wealthy family. When Chu Yang went out for a stroll to observe the situation, he passed by this place several times. However, in just a short period of 2 hours, the people living here had already been replaced. Moreover, the people living here had already been settled down. As for the family of the rich family, they did not leave the house. They just disappeared into thin air. Why did they disappear? Where did they disappear to? Chu Yang knew in his heart. He believed that the lone bamboo city lord's heart was as clear as snow. But the demon empress had ordered him to do his best to make things convenient for Mo Yuntian's people. For this kind of thing, he could only open one eye and close the other. Moreover, the people who were killed were ultimately from the human race, not the demon race. At this time, it was really not suitable to pursue the matter. Chu Yang and this rich family naturally did not know each other. In his heart, he did not have much thoughts of revenge. But now, the people living in his house must be killed. It could also be considered as revenge for him. Or, it could be said that the goal was different, but the result was the same. Chu Yang was 1,000 feet high in the air. Looking down, he could clearly see that these people were busy in the courtyard. From time to time, some people were paying attention to the movements outside. They seemed to be on high alert. The corner of Chu Yang's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile. Like a goshawk searching for food, he swept down. Before he landed, the sword intent transformed into what harms slaughtering the entire world, had already swept out wildly. The cold sword energy had already enveloped the entire courtyard in an instant. It was an indiscriminate attack in a large area. Puff puff puff. Countless piercingly cold sword chi suddenly descended and danced in all directions. There was nothing they could not destroy, nothing they could not break. Even the hard stone walls were pierced through with a single blow. As for the empty courtyard, the sword energy was even more rampant. Those who blocked it were swept away. Enemy attack, someone shouted. Without a doubt, this was a message. Chu Yang was already mentally prepared for this. He completely ignored it. With a sword strike, his body swept down like a hurricane. A calamity sword bloomed with an earth-shattering light. He started a massacre. It was not an evenly matched battle, but a one-sided extremely bloody massacre. For Chu Yang, who had the strength close to the peak of heavenly human stage, and had the assistance of the calamity sword, there was no opponent on the spot. From start to finish, it was only a moment. The courtyard was already full of corpses. Blood and broken limbs were scattered everywhere. It wasn't even noon yet, but Chu Yang had already launched 3 ambushes. This was far from what the people of Moyanshan and the other 2 sects had expected. Who would have thought that the cruel and bloody executioner would not stop temporarily after 2 fatal attacks? He even chose to launch an attack at noon, when the sun was at its brightest in the sky. What kind of guts, what kind of boldness, and what kind of arrogance? The autumn wind was still bleak, but the noon sun was warm and pleasant. But in this warm and pleasant atmosphere, Chu Yang's sudden arrival with a cold and dense killing intent made these people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. At this moment, there were many corpses strewn all over the room. They were killed by the sword energy that pierced through the stone walls. They were caught off guard and died. It could be said that these people were the most innocent ones to have died so far. There were also some people who came from all directions. Some of them shouted loudly and pounced forward. They did not care about their own lives to stop Chu Yang. A heavenly human stage expert rode his sword and came from the sky. He was full of vigor. Around him, there were 7 or 8 peak martial saint stage experts. They attacked ferociously without any regard for their own safety. At this moment, They were all fighting with their lives on the line. Chu Yang laughed hoarsely. Playing with your lives? Excuse me. Instantly, the sword energy shot up into the sky. It only clashed with the heavenly human stage expert for a short while. Then it took advantage of the momentum and retreated. With a magnificent sword light, it went straight into the sky. In a flash, it had already disappeared. Poof! That celestial being expert fell to the ground, covered in blood. His sword had already been turned into iron shavings, and he was unable to resist at all. Then, Chu Yang neatly pierced 17 or 18 bloody holes in his body. Chapter 21:12. From the west, the great elder of Iron Sword clan was hurrying over with his men. They were less than 1,000 feet away from the courtyard. However, at this moment, he heard the sounds of battle coming to a sudden stop. Had the enemy escaped? So many people couldn't even hold on for such a short period of time. That person's strength was so strong, and he was so sharp. He didn't give the enemy any chance to take advantage of him. Just as the great elder was feeling unhappy, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. Then a sword mountain came crashing down from the sky. It came out of the blue, and it came out of the blue. It came out of the blue, and it came to kill. Now that the Tribulation Sword Master had broken through to the celestial being level, the power he could unleash was unimaginable. At least, it had already surpassed the limits of martial artists of the same level. Chu Yang performed the 30 moves of Tribulation Sword technique one by one. Every single one of his moves was enhanced by the energy of the sword. Just the sword intent alone was already invincible. Coupled with the powerful activation of the Tribulation Sword, the exquisite use of the heaven-splitting divine technique, the limitless supply of energy from his Dantian, and the endless murderous intent of the Tribulation Sword Master. With such an extreme boost, the power that could be unleashed was simply enough to shock the heavens and earth, and make ghosts and gods weep. The great elder turned around, and instinctively drew his sword to meet the attack. Just as the sword was in his hand, he suddenly remembered that this was no longer the divine weapon he had used for hundreds of thousands of years. Just because of this carelessness, the sword mountain had already smashed into the crowd. The great elder howled, and flew up on his sword. He chased after the black shadow in the sky, hoping to hold this butcher back. However, he could only see the enemy's back getting further and further away. It was another strike that sent him flying 1,000 miles away. He couldn't help but stare at Chu Yang with hatred. Chu Yang's method of action was simple and pure. He only used one move. Just one move. No matter if the move succeeded or not, he didn't want to fight. He even used the remaining power of the move to retreat. He didn't stop. If it was an ordinary enemy, it wouldn't be a big deal. Even if there were losses, it would be limited. However, if the Tribulation Sword Master at the celestial being level used his Tribulation Sword and Tribulation Sword intent to retreat, it would be very, very fatal. It could even be infinitely fatal. With just a single touch, 70 to 80 people had already died here forever. The survivors of the Iron Sword sect were all dumbstruck. Previously, he hadn't made any preparations, hadn't been on guard, and hadn't been too vigilant. Even if he couldn't withstand it, he still had something to say. But this time, they were almost fully prepared. The strongest great elder was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. But even so, he was unable to block the attack. Instead, he was slaughtered by the other party and left calmly. In the blink of an eye, the orderly formation of the army was reduced to a pile of flesh and blood. If this continued, wouldn't they all be killed by the enemy sooner or later? This is the fourth attack today, Chu Yang silently muttered in his heart. Then his entire body flew away at lightning speed. In the north, the great elder of the ghost territory had brought the most people with him. Naturally, his momentum was the greatest. However, was it really easy to do things with so many people? Not necessarily. Just as they were about to enter the area where the commotion came from, a bright sword light suddenly appeared in front of them. The moment they saw the sword light had turned into a blazing sun in the sky, and they could no longer look at it directly. A steady and cold voice said, "Who in the world can stop the sword master?" Then, the dazzling sword light turned into a mighty Yangtze River. The Yangtze River's 3 layers wolf, one wave higher than the other. The great elder of the ghost territory was shocked. He shouted, "Everyone be careful. Move to the sides immediately." As he spoke, he drew his sword and went forward. In this trip, the great elder had the highest cultivation. At this moment the soldiers were in danger. Naturally, he didn't pass on his responsibility to others. The sword light didn't change its direction at all. It collided with the great elder of the ghost territory without any tricks. The great elder shouted, "Bastard! We were fooled. This sword light only had the momentum to intimidate people. It wasn't the main force at all." He guessed right. This sword light was just a sword intent. Although it wasn't completely intimidating, its lethality was very limited. Especially for experts, it didn't pose any threat at all. As for Chu Yang himself, he had already driven the Calamity sword and rushed into the crowd. The massacre started again. The Calamity sword was waved again. This time, Chu Yang didn't hold back at all. From one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms. He kept waving his sword until "Don't hold back my blade" after killing the world. 30 moves, he went all out again. Chu Yang's dantian was emptied again in a very short time. There wasn't a single drop left. Finally, a huge bright ball of light suddenly exploded in the crowd. It turned into a monstrous sword energy that shot up to the sky. Then, it turned into an invincible dragon. It started from the front of the crowd and rushed forward with unparalleled momentum. Wherever it passed, heads would fly up, and severed limbs would fly into the air. Before the severed limbs at the front could fly to the highest point, the colorful and resplendent sword light had already pierced through the back of the team like a long dragon. It didn't even look back all the way. Swoosh! It turned into the last little bright light of the end of the scorching sun. Then it disappeared without a sound. The great elder of the ghost clan trembled all over. He almost vomited blood. Although the opponent's sword energy wasn't powerful enough, it still succeeded in stopping him for a moment. He had the cultivation of a beginner saint, but he couldn't save the people on his side. When he had completely destroyed the opponent's sword energy and was about to turn around to attack, he only saw the back of the opponent. He couldn't catch up. Only a hoarse voice could be heard. "There are too few people from the ghost clan who died these 2 days. Today, I'm here to make up for it." A long, hoarse laugh seemed to come from countless places in all directions. Then it returned to silence. "Scoundrel! Stay here. Fight me to the death." The great elder of the ghost clan roared to the sky. His voice was as shrill as a ghost's. However, the opponent didn't make any sound. Obviously, he had gone far away. When he saw the loss of the scene, the great elder of the ghost clan was really angry. He coughed with a red face. He resisted the urge to vomit blood. Just this one wave of attacks from the enemy had reduced the total of 1,200 people of the 3 teams by more than 800 people. The ground was covered in a thick layer of flesh and blood. Puff, 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 puff. Until now, the broken limbs and heads that flew in the air fell down one after another. They fell on the flowing blood on the ground, making dull sounds. Everyone was dumbfounded. The enemy was so fierce and ruthless. How could they be like this? This is the 5th time. The moment Chu Yang returned to the tunnel, he relaxed. His body staggered and almost fell down. His whole body was almost drained of all strength. He was really out of strength. Just now, he had used the sword energy to entangle the great elder of the ghost clan, who had the highest cultivation. Then, he used the tribulation sword technique to slaughter the 3 teams together. It seemed like a glorious achievement, but in fact, he had exhausted all his cultivation. If it weren't for the heaven-splitting divine technique, which allowed him to recover faster than ordinary techniques, and the huge spiritual energy from the tribulation space, Chu Yang wouldn't have been able to hold on with his own strength. In one day, he faced a cloud of experts and attacked 5 times consecutively. If he counted the dozens of attacks he launched last night, it was equivalent to launching close to 20 attacks in one day. With the strength of one person, in one day and one night, he had buried close to 4,000 top experts, close to 4,000 Heaven Imperial Court experts who had at least reached the level of saint. In the entire Heaven Imperial Court, among all the Heavenly Man experts, even those at the peak of Heavenly Man level, There was absolutely no one who could achieve such a glorious achievement. Just as Chu Yang said, "Below the saints, I am the best." There was absolutely no exaggeration in this sentence. Moreover, even if the beginner saints were included, they might not be able to achieve such a terrifying and shocking achievement as Chu Yang. After staying in the tunnel for a while and catching his breath, Chu Yang finally recovered some of his energy. Then he slowly walked to the other side of the tunnel. When he reached the other side, he still carefully used his divine senses to check the movements above. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, Chu Yang took a deep breath and slowly lifted the entire ground. Just as he was about to fly up, he unexpectedly saw water droplets dripping down from the cracks. Could it be that it suddenly rained outside? Chu Yang frowned and sniffed subconsciously. Suddenly he felt a fishy smell. As a man, Chu Yang was really too familiar with this smell. Damn it! Who peed here? Chu Yang cursed his bad luck. In a moment of carelessness, he almost let the urine into his mouth. He couldn't help but feel angry. Who was so uncivilized? Could it be that his bad luck wasn't over yet? In his annoyance he flashed out. A skinny youth with a sallow face and a hunched back walked out weakly with his head lowered. He used what seemed to be his last remaining water cloud coins to buy some vegetables, and also bought some discounted sesame seed cakes and steamed buns that had already turned cold. He walked back with his back against the wall, trembling all the way. After taking 2 steps, he coughed for a while. It was a heart-wrenching cough. That thin and weak figure, under the whistling autumn wind, was so pitiful. Who would have thought that such a thin and weak, cowering, pitiful and weak young man was the bloody executioner who had just slaughtered thousands of experts by himself with only one sword? Was this the return of the king? After walking out of the market in the slums and returning to the street, he saw flashing figures everywhere. Countless people were scurrying around with red eyes, looking for something. As they searched, they cursed incessantly. Damn it! Bastard, bastard! Cruel and merciless beast! This goddamn executioner! Chapter 21:13. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Nothing happened to the person who bumped into him. But the weak and pitiful youth screamed and flew out like a kite with its string cut. He fell to the ground far away in a sorry state. The food in his hands and some cold and even hard buns were scattered on the ground. The person who suddenly walked out from the corner was a man in black. There was a skull embroidered on his chest. He was the demon ghost expert. He had been moving quickly to search for traces of the enemy. Suddenly, he felt that he bumped into someone. Subconsciously, he covered his chest with his hands to be safe. When he looked carefully, he saw that the person he bumped into was a weak and malnourished youth. He could not help but shout, "Bad luck." If he had known it was such a guy, he would not have been so afraid. He couldn't help but feel anger rising in his heart. He threw out a purple cloud coin and shouted, "Scram." This time, it seemed like he was giving alms, but in fact he was killing. This purple cloud coin was flying straight towards the youth's neck. Right at this moment, it should have been before he made his move, but the youth seemed to have been knocked into and groaned in pain. He tilted his head, and the purple cloud coin stuck to his neck and stabbed into the ground. The hidden chi on the purple cloud coin still cut a bloody wound on his neck. The youth could not help but cry out in pain, his entire body trembling. The demon ghost expert frowned and muttered, "Bastard, your luck is not bad. You got lucky." He turned and left. But he did not realize that a faint divine sense had already attached itself to his body. Some kind people saw that this person had already left and hurried over to help the weak and thin youth up. Chu Yang trembled and thanked them. These people saw that although Chu Yang was injured, his spirit was still good. They shook their heads and sighed, walking away quickly. But they did not forget to pick up the purple cloud coin and put it in Chu Yang's hand. Such a weak and sick youth. There were actually people who bullied him. Did the heavens really have no eyes? However, as commoners, this was the most they dared to do. They didn't even dare to curse out loud. This was not cowardice, but the sorrow of being a person at the bottom. Cursing out loud might be satisfying, but cursing out loud might lead to death. The lives of these people were nothing compared to the lives of those powerful people. They could only swallow their anger. Or, if they saw someone who was in the same situation as them, They would help if they could. Other than that, they really couldn't do anything. They didn't dare to do anything. Chu Yang's eyes flashed as he held the purple cloud coin tightly in his hand. He could clearly feel a warm current flowing from the purple cloud coin in his palm. Leaning against the wall, he picked up the vegetables and cold steamed buns one by one and staggered back home, closing the door tightly. Outside, the workers of the medicine hall who were watching all of this couldn't help but sigh sympathetically. However, after being bullied like this, the two of them did not dare to curse back. That's right, if it were him, wouldn't he also not dare to scold him? However, the expert of the demon clan, who had bumped into Chu Yang, was only a few thousand feet away from the place where the incident had occurred. But he suddenly felt that it was difficult to breathe. It was as if a pair of cold big hands were strangling his neck, constantly increasing the strength and tightening. "Who is it?" he shouted in horror. As far as the eye could see, there was clearly nothing around, but where did the feeling of being strangled come from? Although it was illusory, it felt more and more real, more and more real. The next moment, a black smoke rose in front of him, and a skull appeared out of nowhere. It sneered eerily, "Bastard! How dare you? Do you know who you have offended?" This expert of the demon clan trembled. He suddenly remembered a legendary item, and couldn't help but cry out in horror, "The God of Calamity." Before he could finish, his neck was twisted by some inexplicable force. Only a gloomy voice was left, "Great tonic, not bad." Then, a black smoke quietly drifted away. That night, everyone on this street inexplicably found that there was an extra bag of money in their homes. Inside there were Shuiyun coins, Ziyun coins, and even Zixia coins. Some found it in the place where they were cooking, some found it when they opened their blankets at night, and some found it directly on the table where they were eating. Without exception, there was a small note inside. "Good people will be rewarded." Everyone who had obtained this money tightly guarded this secret. Not because of anything else, but because this money was really too big. Once it was spread out, their families would be the first to suffer, causing unnecessary disasters. Sometimes, having too much money was not luck, but disaster. It was just that in everyone's home, a nameless longevity tablet was quietly set up. It said, "Good people will be rewarded. May our benefactor live a long life." Every one of these people worked cautiously as usual, but the quality of their lives improved a lot. Some even began to plan whether it was time to send their children to school. Not only these people, but for a long time in the future, almost every poor family in Lone Bamboo City, as long as they knew their place and didn't do evil, received this kind of money. For generations, everyone had already accepted their fates, and that was how they would live their lives. In fact, their parents and ancestors lived like this. They also thought that they would live like this, and their children and grandchildren would live like this. However, after this incident, everything that followed changed suddenly and subtly. Good people will be rewarded. Even the heavens had eyes. Even if heaven didn't have eyes, people still had eyes. As long as you worked hard, you would be rewarded. No one knew that a piece of paper and a bag of money without any sound had changed the lives of many people. Or as the note said, good people will naturally be rewarded. That night, Chu Yang didn't go back to meet up with Bai Yuchen and the others. He simply slept in this thatched hut as a consumptive young man. Everything was so appropriate, as if this young man had always existed. That night, the noises were unceasingly heard throughout the night. The sound of the wind and the cries of the crane could be heard everywhere. It seemed as if every bush and tree was an enemy. Even though Chu Yang had disguised himself as a sickly youth in the slums, he could still clearly feel the prelude of the coming storm. That kind of silent oppression enveloped the entire Lone Bamboo City. That night, another 100 people died mysteriously. These people who had lost their lives had all unknowingly died in their sleep. They had silently lost their lives. Even after death, the expression on their faces was still very peaceful, as if they were still sleeping soundly. But it was impossible for so many people to die in their sleep at the same time. It was impossible for so many martial saints to die in their sleep at the same time. There must be something fishy about this. The leaders of the three sects gathered again in the wee hours of the morning. This time, there is definitely something fishy about it. This time, It was clearly not the work of that goddamn executioner. This time, it was another kind of surprise attack. But no matter what, it can't be explained. Even the people who were close to him couldn't discover it. Why is this? What kind of strange method could cause such an effect? Among the doubts, the great elder of the Ghost clan's face was gloomy. He didn't speak from the beginning. At the end of the discussion, he lowered his voice and said, "This time, I'm afraid we have encountered a real problem." "What do you mean?" The others were even more confused and asked. Although the previous mysterious killer's cultivation was extremely high, he may not be one of Chu Yang's men. As far as I know, among those people, there is no one who has such cultivation and swordsmanship. That's right. Among them, Bai Yuchen's cultivation is the highest, but she definitely can't reach such a level. As for Chu Yang, who killed Tai that day, he used some kind of method to exchange his life for tyrannical strength. He can't use it frequently, and he can't use it again. He is still a small shrimp in his bones, and he doesn't have such strength. So, I didn't connect the incident during the day to Chu Yang. Although there must be some kind of connection, it was definitely not them who did it. This is already certain, the great elder of the Ghost clan said slowly, but the strange deaths of 118 people last night reminded me of one thing. A very important thing. What important thing? The others asked in unison. I remember General Meng Wuya once said that Chu Yang had a divine soul in his hands. And General Meng Wuya, because of the divine soul in the final battle, was seriously injured and couldn't fight anymore. So this group of survivors fled 88,000 miles and finally escaped. With this, everyone was suddenly enlightened. Yes, I see. Then everything makes sense. So the one who did it last night must be the divine soul in tribulation. Only a divine soul in tribulation can have such a mysterious method. This, General Meng didn't complete the task that day. I see. I'm ignorant, I haven't heard of it. Humph, we are now the key people under surveillance. Who will tell us this? If I didn't have a friend in Wei Jun, I would never know this. The great elder of the Ghost clan sighed. That's right. Since the other party is a divine soul in tribulation, how should we deal with it? Chapter 21:14. Generally speaking, the spirit of calamity is an existence that cannot be killed or destroyed. However, this does not mean that it is invincible. The great elder of the Ghost clan said gloomily. Otherwise, wouldn't this world become the world of the spirit of calamity? He turned his head to look at the great elder of the Iron Sword clan and said, I heard that General Meng used the destruction of wind and thunder to severely injure the spirit of calamity. The great elder of the Iron Sword clan was startled. To deal with the divine soul of the calamity, our ghost's domain alone is definitely not enough. The great elder of the ghost's domain sighed. Our ghost's domain's cultivation method focuses on the cold death chi. For the divine soul of the calamity, this thing is a great supplement. In other words, the divine soul of the calamity is the existence that restrains our sect the most. Therefore, if you want to deal with this spirit of calamity, I'm afraid you too will need to put in a lot of effort. He looked at the great elder of the Iron Sword clan and said indifferently, I heard that the Iron Sword clan has kept a treasure called the bright brilliant jade for generations. It is an item that can restrain the cold death energy of the world. This time, this old man does not believe that we will leave it in the treasury to collect dust at such a time of life and death. At this juncture, it is time for us to work together. If your clan has the ability to deal with it, I hope you will spare no effort to overcome this difficulty together. He narrowed his eyes and smiled, but the great elder of the Iron Sword clan's face had already turned bitter. He sighed deeply. In these 2 nights and 1 day, the 3 big sects in the lone bamboo city seemed to have entered hell. The shadow of death shrouded them at all times. Tan Tan and Yao Ningning, who were also in the lone bamboo city, were playing in full swing at this moment. They were having so much fun that they did not miss anything. Yao Ningning resolutely refused to follow Elder Hu and Elder Ma. She was having so much fun with Tan Tan in the lone bamboo city. Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma had seen that Tan Tan's manner of speech and behavior were quite unconventional. However, it wasn't particularly mischievous. At the very least, Tan wouldn't set foot in those filthy places. With this as the main premise, the two elders finally felt a little more at ease. They only used their divine sense to envelop the area. After confirming the direction, they no longer followed closely behind, not leaving a single step behind. In any case, Lone Bamboo City was only about the size of a woman's butt. Even if there was danger with their cultivation, they should be able to hold out for a while. If they had that much time, the two elders would have rushed over. The Demon Empress had already given an order to give the Grand Elder a certain amount of training space. They only robbed people from the three great sects and didn't rob anyone else. Moreover, they didn't even bother to hide their actions. It would be strange if such actions didn't attract attention. When the people from the three sects heard this news, they didn't believe it at first. Who was so awesome and bold? How dare they rob Lone Bamboo City so brazenly? This was impossible. Was there a mistake somewhere? However, as more and more people who were robbed came back crying and complaining, each and every one of them was about to go crazy. Motherfucker. Ever since they came here, everything had gone wrong. First they were robbed. Then they were killed by the spirit of the calamity. Now they actually encountered robbers. This was simply bad luck, one after another. Motherfucker. Are the three great sects of Ink Cloud Sky soft persimmons? Does anyone have to pinch us when they see us? This matter couldn't be tolerated no matter what. Besides, it seems that this reason is on our side, right? Dozens of experts rushed over from all directions as soon as the order was given. They surrounded Tan and Yao Ningning, the two idiots. In fact, not even a drop of water could trickle through. You two bastards, you actually dare to rob in broad daylight. You're really audacious. Moreover, you're robbing people from the three great sects of Ink Cloud Sky. You're really reckless. A middle-aged man shouted. Why don't you surrender? What are you waiting for? What do we do now? Yao Ningning was a little nervous. They're here. Although a certain old man participated in the robbery, in the end, it was all for fun. At the very least, he still had some sense of right and wrong and reverence for the law. Tan said casually. What's there to be afraid of? Let's just kill them. Don't tell me that we're two handsome men, and strong men. Need to be afraid of them. How can we not fight and not see blood when we roam the martial world? Yao Ningning said, That's right. Suddenly, she felt complacent in her heart. I'm also a handsome man, handsome and strong man. Then, she looked at Tan and thought, just me. Suddenly, a heroic spirit rose in her heart. She strode out and shouted, Who are you people? In a peaceful world, in a clear and bright world, in a public place, you actually dare to gather people to block the road and hold swords and sabers. Do you want to commit murder? Do you know the word law? The person who spoke didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A robber actually asked the people who came to catch the robber whether they knew the law. You really have no shame. The two of you are robbing in a peaceful world, in a clear and bright world in broad daylight. Are you not afraid of being punished by the law? That person didn't want to be caught and asked first. Ha ha ha. Yao Ningning looked up to the sky and laughed, releasing the aura of the Demon Emperor Heaven. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? While the sword move was still in preparation, the energy of the whole world was suddenly emptied due to some situation. Everyone within a radius of 10,000 feet felt as if they couldn't breathe at the same time. An unprecedented silent oppression suddenly enveloped this place. Uncle Hu and Uncle Ma, who were about to move, suddenly paused. A trace of inexplicable fear flashed in their eyes as they looked in a certain direction. As people who were at the peak of the elementary level of Saint, they knew the origin of this aura better than anyone else. How could such an aura be produced? That was the ultimate slaughter. Inhumane and scrupulous slaughter. Moreover, this kind of ultimate slaughter could only appear when an expert at the level of a saint unleashed an all-out attack without holding back. Who is it? Who exactly was it? Which saint had actually gone mad at such a time? In an instant, a majestic sword light filled with madness and destruction suddenly lit up behind the people of the three big sects. At this moment, even the scorching sun in the sky seemed to have lost its brilliance. Although it was broad daylight, everyone could feel that under the illumination of that brilliant sword light, the originally clear sky and bright sun were actually dim and no different from the night sky. The sword light cut through the sky at an extremely fast speed. Its speed was dozens of times faster than flowing light, but it also gave people a feeling that it was incomparably slow. This kind of completely opposite feeling made everyone who felt this artistic conception almost go crazy. At the same time, a mosquito-like voice suddenly transmitted to Tan's ears. "You bastard! Hurry up and leave!" A sword light flew up like an angry dragon. It galloped wildly like a golden dragon. In an instant, it turned into a river of stars and majestically entered the crowd. The great elder of the ghost hunter was standing in the front. He suddenly turned around. His cultivation base was the highest among the people here, so only he knew what was going on. Instantly he was scared out of his wits. He screamed at the top of his lungs, "Run!" But the majestic sword light had already rushed into the dense crowd and exploded with a loud bang. It was as if all the crystals in the world were gathered here and shattered at this moment. That gorgeous and resplendent light, that space was shattered into countless folds. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.